Dr. Verret is a total man, a noted scientist, a man of deep faith, a scholar, one of the brightest men I've ever met. At the same time, he's got a real playfulness and he's got a great sense of humor. Just as comfortable in a suit and tie as he is in a running suit or riding his bike around.
He is the epitome, for me, of what I call a Renaissance person.
He is very well educated. He's a scientist, but he loves the humanities, he loves the arts.
Xavier University is our premier school among the historically black colleges and universities. If you were looking for someone to run such a school, you'd want to find someone whose science is excellent. And you'd want to find someone whose belief is well-founded and true. I believe Dr. Reynold Verret is extremely well-suited to lead Xavier University.
Having grown up in the 60s and 70s, I think there are things from which you harness a fortitude. His passion, firstly, as a Catholic, his dedication or his faith.
He's obviously been a student. He's been a professor. He's served in several roles in administration. That wide background allows him to bring a perspective to his job that is very important.
He was always curious, inquisitive, and rummaging through things that he didn't have permission to rummage through.
I was always taking things apart. An experiment that I did with finding an old washing machine motor and taking the wires out and running the armature down and running it upstairs and sticking it inside a socket. The kids downstairs, who were downstairs, would grab the wire and they would get a good shock. I was probably 5 or 6 years old. That was one of my early experiments.
He had always been interested in science from as far back as I can remember. But my mom cultivated that.
I was born in Port-au-Prince, outside of Port-au-Prince in Pétionville. My father was a physician in Haiti. My mother was a nurse midwife. In 1963, Duvalier made a major purge and people were being arrested. Soldiers came by the house, lined us up in the living room, and they took my mother away. And I learned that they wanted to find my father. It took some time, probably a week or more, before my mother was found and released. We left the United States in August of that year. I was 8 years old at that time. And that's when we arrived in Brooklyn. We're on Carroll Street in Brooklyn, where I grew up. Not far from here was my school and also my high school, but also on this block, this is where we lived our lives as children. And a block away from here is a botanical garden, where in many ways we explored. We were young scientists, we caught tadpoles, put them in jars. We knew every plant in the garden, we knew when they bloomed. We knew every hole in the fence, how to sneak in as children.
He was always dragging me to the pond to get specimens.
The fact that we're going through the fences, actually, technically, I was encouraging to break the law. Because actually knew us, they would let us in. And the Japanese guard, which had the koi, and also this Japanese, lovely escaped Japanese, are still there.
He has a way of finding interesting the things that you are doing. I would say probably within a year or two, he'll get to know every kid on the campus.
His sort of unshaken belief, in himself, and again, grace under pressure, and this sense that despite having some adversity, he was going to prevail, was a phenomenal model for me.
The way that I would describe Dr. Verret's faith, it is by no means a blind faith. It's something that he is engaged in not only culturally but intellectually.
The phrase ad majorem Dei gloriam, for the greater glory of God, is something that for many of us, Reynold, myself, and some others, we actually took it to heart. It's very obvious that in Reynold's career and in Reynold's life, that's exactly what he's done.
He's clearly been formed by his experience, his faith experiences. This was very important to us in the search committee, to find a man who understood our faith, could communicate to Catholics and non-Catholics alike the mission of Xavier.
Faith hasn't changed my life It sustains my life because it's the grounding of who I am and why I am. When the choice came of whether I would take my science into industry or into academia or teach, it was very easy to see that my soul called me to combine those two. I found a picture. It's a picture of me with very big ears standing in front of a class, and I must have been in the 10th grade of younger kids. So I've been teaching a long time. And the ears were big.
He was engaged with a lot of people at MIT, not just in science. And this is, I think, the aspect of him which has enabled him to rise to the leadership that he has now at Xavier.
He always saw that I could accomplish whatever I wanted to do. And that faith which he saw in me is that faith which I'm sure he sees in every single individual at Xavier.
How do you see Xavier preparing you for life after Xavier?
I believe the structure here is the biggest part of being at Xavier, right?
Yeah, I think the opportunities are very amazing here. Just being able to, like you said, meet people, but also go places.
Come in. Hi, Reynold. Hello, Michael. How are you?
Good, good, good.
to have
It's
you
great
back.
to see you. Great
Have
to
a
see you.
seat. It's been 6 months, and a little bit more.
Seems like 30 days to me.
It's good to have you back. And we want to take a look to see how we are doing and what our progress is.
Well, I'm always happy to walk around and see construction underway on the campus. What do you think of the students?
They don't see each other as competitors, they see each other as part of one team, that they should all succeed together.
The thing I find interesting about Xavier is the sense of collaboration among students. That's unique.
And that's,
You don't find that everywhere.
I think it's one of our charisms.
Absolutely.
How do you find the campus environment at Xavier?
It's like a big family, really. Everyone is just really warm and really welcoming. Professors and students, faculty, everybody.
I was surprised my second week here, one of my teachers was like, "Oh, Mr. Prophet," and I was like, "Oh, you know my name?"
Working with Dr. Verret has been an absolute pleasure for me. He's a very humble man, but still has a wonderful self-confidence. I feel very comfortable that we've got a man that's really in charge of things here at Xavier.
If there's a need, he doesn't have to wait around for everything to happen. He can make a decision. He asks very perceptive questions. I kind of have the sense sometimes that he knows the answers already, but he wants us to figure it out too.
One question I would have, the Enterprise Solutions Steering Committee, is that a balanced group right now?
Yes.
Okay, then probably going forward, that probably should be the group where you would use as your deliberating group and also decision-making group to weigh things.
His philosophy is leadership by example, and he's always done that.
I don't think that Reynold would ask someone to do something that he himself wouldn't do or hadn't actually already done. Leading by example, leading by dedication. I would say that Reynold is the type of leader that the 21st century needs.
He's looking very carefully at if St. Catherine Drexel were alive today, what would she be doing? Who would she be inviting to Xavier? What would be her concerns about Xavier? And he's looking at that in a very reflective mode.
We've had a tendency to hide our successes under a bushel basket. And the world needs to know what a wonderful place Xavier is. There is much more Xavier can do, and Dr. Verret understands that. There are new courses and disciplines that need to be offered that he embraces. And I think Dr. Verret has a 22nd century vision for Xavier that's quite exciting.
The question that we have to ask at Xavier is to ask, what are the problems and what are the needs that Xavier needs to serve today? And we will be asking that question 25 years from now, what are the problems and what are the circumstances that Xavier needs to address at that time? So we have to actually give ourselves some flexibility as well to read the signs and to pay attention to them.